Hello and welcome. My name is Alyssa and this is Into the Heart Wild, and today I'm bringing you guys a very late video about my September wrap-up. In early the minute September hit, I was ready to start reading some middle grade spooky horror books. It is my middle grade spooky horror mystery thriller is like my favorite middle grade subgenre, honestly. I really enjoy it. You either get like really funny, you get really sad, or you get, wow, that's a lot for a child to handle. And I like that. And when September hit, I was so burnt out from reading big long fantasy books and big long science fiction books that I was like, you know what, we're gonna start a month early and we're gonna dive right on into those middle grade books because I want to. So I read 8 middle grade books in total, and I'd have to say 5 of them I really super enjoyed. The other ones I enjoyed. So with that said, let's just go ahead and jump right on into this. Our first book is The Crossroad by Gabriella Pendergast. This is actually an arc that I received like last year. It's extremely short, 120, not even 100 pages. It's 100 pages, and it follows the story of Blue, a boy who winds up having to fix a deal with the fairies that his mother ended up making when he was a child. Due to the length of being only 100 pages, it really lacked the ability to be submersive. Everything happened just boom, 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 boom. You couldn't really get to know the characters. You couldn't really feel the friendships that were forming between Blue and a couple of the other fairies. You couldn't really feel the weight of the agreement that Blue's mother had created with this fairy. When you think about it, you're like, okay, that's not a very good deal. That's a terrible deal, especially when you find out how Blue is involved in it. But because it happens in the shortest time frame, you're not really able to sit there and be like, ooh, that's really deep. You're just kind of like, oh, that's deep, and we're already on our mission to fix it. It doesn't really get to sink in, so it doesn't really allow you to feel the emotions that you should have been feeling. It's a very quick and easy book for a child to just like run through as quickly as they can, especially if reading is something they struggle with. But if you're looking for a very deep story about a boy who goes to the fairyland and has to undo a terrible deal that his mother made with the fairy queen, this isn't what I would recommend. But if you have a child who is very interested in fairies and all of those kind of things, this is a great starter book for them. Next up, I have Museum of Thieves by Leanne Tanner. This was very interesting. There are children who are chained to guardians until they reach the age of 16. Of course, in this story, the proctor, what is their name? There's a lovely little character guide here. The Grand Protector. She, of course, in this book decides to, 13? We're going to change it because there has been no reason for children to be protected to this level anymore because there is no evil, no harm, no wars going on in our town. So she tries to do that. Of course, I think we're going to be referencing this character thing. The Fugleman disagrees with this, and he completely starts up a whole situation to prevent it from happening. There is a lot of action. There is just a lot of crazy aspects going on with how these kids are trying to be controlled by the adults in their lives. There is a magical museum that changes whenever it wants, however it wants. Like 1 minute you're in a kitchen, the next minute you're in a random hallway. It's never the same. Only thieves have access to this museum and understand how the museum works because the museum works with the thieves. There is magical dogs. There is a ghost realm full of people from the war. That got dark. It really did. And it's just, It's just a wild and kind of crazy ride, and it keeps you hooked the whole way through. The main characters are very easy to end up liking. It's, what's her name? Goldie and her friend Toadspit. I think that's his name. Yes, Toadspit. He renamed himself to Toadspit. That is what this boy chose. He said, I'm gonna give myself a new name, Toadspit. That's good stuff. And I said, you know what, kid? You're 13. Do what you do. Do what you do. They're both very fun and easy to get to like, and you see their struggle with trying to get along with each other and not getting along, and then getting along, and then understanding like the severity of their situations. It even goes so far as to save kids from like a jail, basically. Like their children getting thrown in jail. And then like their parents get sent to a jail as well. It's a lot of just really kind of like crazy aspects where it just involves children being controlled to this abnormal amount of level. Like you're just kind of like, wow, that's abnormal. And all the villains are just absolutely terrible, to the point where some of them are just like, I don't care if they die, who cares? And you're just kind of like, that's a child you're talking about, you're supposed to be protecting them. And you're like, how are these people supposed to be protecting kids if they're so willing to throw them in jail, lock them up, let them die, any of these things? Like you're just kind of like, they're not good guys. This is so weird. And yet they believe that they're the good guys. So it was very interesting to read, and very addicting and captivating. After that, we have The Wild Robot by Peter Brown and The Wild Robot Escapes, also by Peter Brown. Book 1, Book 2. These are basically about a robot who washes up on the shore of an island and ensues to be the wild robot. Learns how to talk to animals, learns how to survive. The first book, I have to say, is much better than the follow-up. I enjoyed this one immensely more. Seeing Roz, right? Yes. Seeing Roz and her struggle with trying to be accepted by the wildlife that thinks she's a monster was done really well. And one of the aspects that I really enjoyed about these books was, on one hand, they felt as if they were written for a 5-year-old. And on the other hand, because some of the subject matter was very dark and very deep, felt like it was written for like that 12, 13 age range, which is where the book is considered to fall. But because it felt like you could read it to a 5-year-old, you're kind of like, this book is very open to who can enjoy it and who can understand it. The darker themes probably will go over like some 5-year-olds' heads, but it's still easily accessible and it's very easy to get through. I think I read both of these in like 2.5 hours. And like I said, the first book, much better. The second book is all about Roz getting back to her island and back to her adopted son. It ensues like more wild shenanigans kind of things. But also one of the things I did like about the follow-up was how, going from the first book where she struggled to be recognized as something other than a monster, in the second book she is talked about all over the place as like the greatest robot ever. Everybody knows her and her son's story, and they are excited to meet her and they want to be friends with her. So it was really kind of nice seeing that journey go from, I can't make any friends, everyone says I'm a monster, to everyone loves me and they're trying to help me get back to my home. So I did enjoy that aspect, but again, the first book, so good. The second book, enjoyable. But out of the two, I did enjoy the first book much more. After that, we have The Stolen Prince of Cloudburst by Jacqueline Moriarty. I hate the title of this book. I'm just gonna start there. I can't tell why I hate this title of this book, because it gets revealed at literally the end of the entire story. But I hate it because I thought I was getting a story about a stolen prince from Cloudburst. That is not what I got. I got the story about a little girl like coming into herself and finding who she is and going on these crazy adventures and just wild and crazy fun, which you know, I enjoyed her adventures. I enjoyed her as a character. I enjoyed reading her her perspective on things. And I just overall had a lot of fun with it. But I was just very disappointed that it was not a story about a stolen prince. Because those are one of my favorite kind of like stories, like princes being kidnapped. Because I just like that. But it was still fun, very enjoyable, lots of laughs. Then we have Wretched Water Park by Kirsten White. This is the first book in the Sinister Summer. Originally, I had zero interest in this book. I picked it up due to the fact that I went to the library to pick up a hold that they had for me, and they lost it, and I was very upset. And so I was walking around looking at all the other middle grade books, and I was like, you know what, fine, I'm gonna read the stupid Wretched Water Park book, and I'm probably gonna hate it. I loved it. I loved it. This was gothic, it was creepy, it was weird, it was engrossing. The siblings, they are twins, and they have an older sister named Will, who is addicted to her cell phone. Do kind of wish they had explored a bit more with her character, because after a while it got annoying. So I hope in later books we get to see more of Will's like personality. But the two main characters, Theo and Alexander, his name is Alexander, he doesn't like to be called Alex, okay? They are amazing. They are twins who get along very well. They balance each other out. One is always brave and reckless. The other is always cautious and nervous. And when the other does something within that realm, the other inadvertently makes him feel bad about it, but then reflects on it and are kind of like, yeah, I probably should have done it the way they had said I should do it. And they talk out their problems, they work things out. They are one of the few siblings in middle grade books where I'm like, okay, I really enjoy their vibe of how they get along, because sometimes it always feels a little over the top and just comes off as very fake, but these two actually felt very realistic in their relationship with each other. They end up at a water park that has this very gothic spooky theme to it. Like it's like you walk it, like, you know, you go to most water parks and it's like happy fun and sunshine. Like this place is like, we wear suits and tuxedos all in black, everything is black, our rides look like demons. The names are also very creepy and everything. They have one restaurant you know, just it has like all these gothic vibes and everything. And these children end up here because their parents are just like, you're gonna go to your aunt's house, an aunt who you've never met and or heard of. And these kids are like, did they just, what, who is this person? And this aunt, the mystery around this aunt, because it's not fully revealed what her deal is, you're just kind of like, how are you connected? Like, you're kind of weird. And the kids think she's weird too, but at the same time, they can't always remember having been around her. They can't remember getting to her house. They can't remember going home. They can't remember so many things involving their aunt, and it's weird. You get to meet the side character Edgar, who is super adorable. He works at the water park. He is like your standard gothic boy who Will ends up getting a crush on, you know. And the overall idea of the story is Mr. what is his name? Winterbottom, I think. No, that is the main kids. Their last name is Sinister Winterbottoms. Oh my god, what's his name? What is the main guy's name who goes missing? Yeah. See, like one of the rides is called the Cold Unknowable Sea. Oh my god, what is his name? The River Styx, and Zephyrina. Widow. His name is Mr. Widow. And he goes missing, and the kids think that they were sent to this park by their parents to help solve the mystery behind Mr. Widow's disappearance. And all a matter of things ensue. People start disappearing from the park, less people start coming. They are basically stuck having to visit this park for 7 days. And the twist and the reveal at the end, I was like, well, I didn't see that coming. So I did enjoy that. I love when I don't see the twist coming. But I also feel like the villain might pop up in later books just because of how it played out. Like, I'm kind of like, are they going to show up again? Because I feel like they're going to show up again. Like, there's just something about them where I'm just kind of like, So it was fun, and it had its laughs and everything, and I really loved the gothic vibes that it had. So I'm very glad that my anger like forced me to pick this up because I was very upset. I was very upset that day. But also it has, if you like a series of unfortunate events, it's got those vibes. It just, the way the characters work, the way their antics happen, the way the story unfolds, like it just, you can feel the inspiration from a series of unfortunate events. So definitely very good. Glad I picked it up. I will definitely be looking for the second one, which I think comes out this month, and then the third one comes out in like March or whatever. So I will be definitely looking forward to reading the next two in the series. Next we have The Clackity by Laura Sneff. I really enjoyed this one. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this was the main character. She suffers from anxiety and panic attacks. As someone who has panic and anxiety attacks, I have to say that this is one of the best portrayals that I have seen of panic and anxiety attacks, because it is not something that is just brushed aside. She continuously throughout the book has attacks and has to talk herself through them. She either overcomes the attacks, or she does succumb to some of them, and I think that's very realistic. And so I enjoyed seeing that aspect and actually seeing her struggle with it. But at the same time, I also enjoyed that like the people in her life didn't brush it under the rug and act as if it wasn't a big deal, because they are big deals. They can be very they can really prevent you from doing something. And there are moments in this book where that happens with her because she succumbs to her panic attacks. The main plot of the story is she lives in Blight Harbor. It is the most haunted place in America, and she visits the slaughterhouse, which I thought was very interesting because I haven't really seen middle grade books that use slaughterhouses as a haunted house. And basically she winds up getting teleported to this spookier realm by this thing called the Clackity, where she has to go through 7 different houses to save her aunt who has been taken. And to do so, she, while at the same time of trying to go through these houses and save her aunt, she is also trying to escape the ghost of a murderer. Which was very, very interesting as well. I do wish that the Clackity itself had been more predominant in the story, because it was more just kind of like this creature that would appear every now and then, and kind of give her vague information to help her along and make, you know, deals with her. The story did actually focus a lot more on the murderer that was chasing her, because the murderer wanted to get to her aunt. So you're dealing with that. You're dealing with her going through each house, because yes, you do get to go through each house. Some of them deal with her and her personal struggles. Some are like fairy tales. And then others are just kind of random. And each house kind of gets like progressively worse than the last. And you're kind of like, there is one in particular where it just gets really creepy, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I hope she makes it out okay. But overall, it was very fun. It was very dark. It was very creepy. Like I said, slaughterhouses, murderers, not things that I've normally seen in middle grade horror books. So I really loved that change. But I do have to say, like, the big selling point was the attention to detail in dealing with her anxiety while going through all of these frightening things, because simple things can trigger an anxiety attack. Being followed by a murderer is definitely going to trigger one. It is the first in a series, so I will be looking forward to more of them. I don't know if the rest of the series are going to involve her just being transported into more creepy places, or if it's going to revolve more around this Clackity of this ancient ghost, because that was the other thing. Like, the Clackity did not want this murderer in its realm because they were fighting for power, and so they were each attempting to use this child to one up the other. So I don't know if like follow-up books are going to involve the Clackity. I kind of hope they do, because like I said, I wanted more of the Clackity. But overall, it was still really good, very spooky, very strange, and I look forward to the next one. The last book that I read, which is called The Ash House by Angahard Walker. This is definitely my favorite book of last month. This book was insane. Okay. It was insane. From knowing that kids are being kidnapped, to a quack doctor experimenting on children, a headmaster who's gone missing, a group of children living in a greenhouse on this property that no adult is on, them all being scared of the doctor. Just, it was wild, it was crazy, it was creepy, it kept me captivated. Like, I was just like, I have to know what happens, I have to know what happens. I'm like, where's the headmaster? Who's this doctor? Why are these kids scared of this doctor? Like, so many questions running through my head. And one of the things that some of the reviews have said is like, they're like, oh, I don't understand how the main character got there. It tells you. If you compare the first chapter to the final chapter, you can make the connection of how this child ended up there, and you're just kind of like, and I'm just kind of left going, hey, what? Excuse me? Like, it's so hard to talk about because everything would be like a spoiler, but it was so good. And I'm just like I said, like the doctor and the headmaster mystery, there's also like this crazy like monster beast thing that literally is set up to chase and attack these children. Okay, like they're like deathly afraid of it. Their names are also very interesting. Like, their names are, they get their old names taken and they get a new name, and it's like Freedom, Conquered, Liberty, things like that. And they're all supposed to be taught the niceness and how to act the niceness. These children are not nice, and yet they think they are. That's the crazy thing. Like, these kids literally beat a kid and leave him in a grave, and they think they did the nice. They think they did the nice. And I'm like, that's not the nice. That's not the niceness. That is not how niceness works. You know, you don't bury someone alive. And then when you get to that final chapter and things are told to you in normal terms compared to how these kids tell their story, because their story sounds made up, like, but when they explain it in like regular terms, you're kind of like, holy, is that actually what happened? Is that actually what happened in that scene? Like, there's a particular scene where when you read it in the beginning, you're like, oh, that's terrible. And then when you revisit it in the final chapter, you're like, did they? No. What? And on top of that, it leaves in the most open, like, there had better be a second book to this, okay? That is all I have to say, is there had better be an Ash House 2, because there are questions that need to be answered. There are, because like, I still don't know what the actual Ash House is. It's kind of weird. We don't know if that lake was magical or not, or if it was all like psychosomatic and like the kid thought he got better because he thought he was sick, because that's the whole reason he goes here, is because he's sick and it's supposed to make him better. And you're just kind of like, what? Drinking ash water made you better? But also, like, there are just other events that didn't fully finish closing out, and I'm kind of like, no, we can't have we cannot end like this. Like, there had better be a second book. That is all I have to say. If there is never a second book, I am going to be so mad, because there are so many things that still need to be addressed. They're just, I need a second book. I need a second book, and I haven't heard anything about if there is or isn't going to be one. but it needs to happen. Okay, but this was my favorite book of last month. It was so freaking good. This is a library copy. I will be buying this for my personal collection because holy crap. It was insane, especially when the doctor comes along, because oh my god. When that doctor came along, I was like, he is not, he is. Oh my god, no. Oh no. So yes, it is much darker than most. It's definitely more of an upper middle grade, so like the 14-15ish range. Definitely right around in there, because it is much darker. A lot of dark things happen to these children. There are deaths, bullying, just it's a doozy, but it's so freaking good. So those are the books that I read for September. If you have read any of these, or if any of these sound interesting to you, because I know I don't really have a lot of middle grade followers, but if any of these sounded interesting to you, you're more than welcome to leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys next time.